It's 2027. That week aura pack from your favorite guild is no longer available. No longer do you have auto markers, spread checkers, distance checkers. It's all been removed. It's a desolate world where man must survive on their wits and cunning alone. But is that a bad thing? The sun is setting and the shroud of midnight is ready to envelop us all, and it is time for us to jump in our time machine. We're going to go into the future to take a look at what raiding is going to look like, perhaps forevermore.
We do a lot of looking back and filling in the details of the major turning points in WoW, and one is about to happen in real time. Manaforge Omega has been revealed, tested, and it's about to go live, and it is going to be the final raid, maybe ever, where the use of major gameplay add-ons is going to be allowed. From this moment on, it's Wild West time. There's going to be missteps, wins, and maybe some very scuffed raid bosses coming up, but most importantly, many of the quality of life functions that you use every single day are no longer going to be around. And we all know why this is happening. The arms race against combat add-ons is lost. Fights got too complex and fast to try and counter these add-ons, meaning that better add-ons were made and so on. And there's a perception going around that essentially add-ons just play the game for you in high-end raiding. Then they tried private auras, and that just made players use macros to feed into those add-ons instead of just playing the things.
However, perception is important. In fact, for some people, perception is everything. If your character or your class is not represented in the MDI or the Race to World First, you can guarantee that little Timmy isn't going to want you in his +5 key because you are not optimal. Now, the source of this crazy perception about add-ons, I think, comes from two major sources. The first one is when weak auras go wrong. If there is a boss that requires like a crazy weak aura that causes a ton of frustration, this would be like your Ashara Mother Brain or your Farak Shields that leads to crazy things like Sneak Dock Lure, which creates a lot of frustration. And you hear all this noise and grumbling from the raid community that they spent the entire night of progress just trying to get this weak aura to work and didn't actually kill or shoot anything. That creates a lot of problem. However, the second one, that's the big one. The first issue, that's a raider problem. They deal with all that stuff. The second one is seen by everyone, and that is dog shit UIs. I am serious, dude. In researching this video, I had to look through so many videos to see what people had been using and adapted, and certainly over time after the bosses came out. I'm talking from really top-end world players, I'm not naming names, all the way down to like people who've just killed some of the bosses recently. The amount, the sheer quantity of information vomit just pouring out onto the screen, duplicated info. People who have the same information listed 4 or 5 times. Boss mods and weak auras. Look, I get it. Everybody gets told when you start playing WoW, install bigwigs, install DBM, whatever's your poison. And then they go and install a weak aura pack from Liquid, Echo, Method, whoever it might be. And we can see that a hell of a lot of you do that. But that, at some point, changed. Weak auras used to be like good notifiers of important debuffs, things like that. Little extra helps. But at some point, that changed, and it basically became another boss mod, now with more bells, whistles, noises, telephones, and all sorts of stuff ringing all over the place. And I understand that for most people, they don't go through all their add-ons and get rid of information that is useless to them. The amount of UIs out there right now that look like an entire Matrix data center is incredible. And I do not blame the casual observer watching the race, looking at kill videos, just seeing streams of data and assuming that the game is just being played by add-ons and the player is completely unimportant, despite the fact it's absolutely not true. So those of you out there who actually remove information from your weak aura packs that isn't relevant to you, you're the real heroes.
If you look at nearly all the bosses from the last expansions, very, very few of them require weak auras or advanced add-on tech. Once again, they have been planning this change likely for at least a few years, similar to housing, and building encounters with it in mind. Now, Blizzard cannot solve your crap UI, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a problem that they can solve. Now, don't shoot me here, I'm not shilling but I do feel bad for Blizzard on this one. They've tried. They have really, really tried to avoid taking this step. But there is a pattern we're going to show you of them only ever stepping in when, inevitably, greedy players go too far. There are countless examples of this going all the way back to vanilla with Decursive, AVR in Wrath, Legion's auto group. Hell, man, when Blizzard implemented their one-button gameplay function just recently, it took a day for a brand new add-on to be made that used one-button gameplay not only more optimally, but with zero downsides. That turns the whole game into one button. So they had to step in and kill it. There is an issue Blizzard wants to solve, though. They want you to play out a mechanic and be a little creative. Make a decision. Maybe communicate a bit as a team and not have an add-on just tell you what to do. Archimon Heroic is always the prime demonstration of this. On the one hand, Paragon did what Blizzard wanted. A beautiful, elegant solution to the issue of wrought chaos. Or you could do what Method did, and make a weak aura instead. They used the radar lines so that the players could just ignore the mechanic completely and just DPS through it with a huge advantage over the competition. Not exactly the creative vision that Blizzard foresaw, and that's the problem. As Ian said, how many mechanics can they just not do because a weak aura will just solve it and make it boring? His example, of course, was Blood Queen Lanathel with the bites. Blizzard wants to open the door again to boss fights that can be more interactive. So the plan is simple, but it is going to take a while. Hopefully. They need to do baby steps, as the final goal is likely the removal of all add-on interaction that can be taken from the combat log, and then Blizzard, now using their own boss mod, they get to decide what information should be given to the players. It's got to be a slow, steady peeling away of the current functionality, and interestingly, they've mostly been doing this for a while now. Cutting the head off completely might be too much to swallow, and if their own boss mod takes some smoothing out like the other UI modernization implemented over the last few years, then it's going to be a mess. You know, there's a really ironic twist in the tale here. Manaforge Omega features one of the most weak aura solved bosses we have seen in a really long time. Call me a skeptic, but I believe they've done this intentionally to get the conversation going. Certainly on, this would have been way cooler without a weak aura. Fractilia saw the Tetris bosses rolling in at boss number 6, and it's the more classic Patchwork, Smolderon, Nuki Nuki boss. Its basic mechanic is building walls, and then breaking walls in a way that you never have 6 in a row or you all die. The issue comes in that a weak aura already exists, and I do want to give a massive shout out here to Kalamazzi for sharing this with us. He's such a wonderful guy. That simply tells you where to put your walls and where to break them without the player making any actual decisions for themselves. Follow your assignments and GG, just do enough damage. Without a weak aura, this would be way more interesting. Players seeing where the stacks are, where mistakes happen, a bit of communication, adjusting as the fight goes on, we need to break X, make sure we put more on Y. It couldn't be more of a perfect candidate for mechanics that could be fun, but are spoiled by add-ons' existence. Very coincidental timing, if you ask me, for this boss to exist right now. In contrast, the 7th boss, Eden 1 Savage, Nexus King Saladar, has insane-looking high-speed mechanics that at least, for now, on paper, seem very solvable without the use of add-ons. Especially for you FF raiders out there. So, Time Machine, what is going away? More than you probably think and are very used to. Again, perception. You probably think certain things are going away and are really happy about it, but the actual stuff that's going to go away, you'll be like, oh, I kind of like that. No longer are we going to have auto assignments for silly things, like what order to stand in, which pool you have to soak, which hole to jump in. That kind of thing will have to be done either by using the best weak aura ever, Eyes weak aura, or in more notepad assignments and priority lists like many of you are used to. The interrupt weak aura has become commonplace where it's applicable. That will likely be going away, and again, communication coming into place in assignments. Larger use of in-game and outside notes than is used today will probably happen. I have to wonder if /say alerts will remain. They've been around since basic boss mods, so most likely. Personal reminders that are based on combat time or events in game are a really interesting one. Can players then start their own personal timer when they do a pull? Likely most UI customization is going to stay. Debuff tracking, etc. is a personal choice, and you still have to respond to the warning, so that's fine. It's unclear how far they're going to go at this stage, but you have to imagine that they want to be in a world where you only have the information they believe you need, and that's it. So okay, cool, we're going to lose some little quality of life stuff. So what are we going to gain? Let me describe a few ways this could play out and things I would probably like to see added to World of Warcraft that are utilized either in old World of Warcraft, it has been done before, and also what is being done in, say, FF14 and Guild Wars, where add-ons are less of a big thing. Firstly, variable debuff timers. We have seen this in the past, but the idea is typically in WoW, you either all get a debuff, like Fractilius, where you all just spread out and you explode, or a couple of people get a debuff and then we go out and we drop them at a certain area, things like that. And what we could now start messing with is actual variable debuffs. Assuming your UI is not going to change in terms of debuff tracking, we could see things where everybody gets a debuff or several people get a debuff. However, it's going to expire at very different times. And when that happens, certain events will occur. Usually in WoW, it's run out, drop a bomb, whatever, get it out of there, drop a pool, you know the usual script. However, we could open the door to potentially seeing something like limit cut. Limit cut is something that is really cool and actually takes place amongst other mechanics. So you don't just get these debuffs and then sort of wait for that to resolve. With limit cut, a bunch of people get a load of debuffs and then other things are happening in the fight while you're bearing in mind that limit cut is also going to happen. So what is limit cut? In FF14, 8 people will get a bunch of debuffs. Typically, 4 people will get a bunch of debuffs, and then a pairing set of 4 people will get those debuffs as well. So you'll have one group that expires in like 6 seconds, another one in 15, and 25, and then 30, and so on and so forth. Now, what this does is actually cause attacks from the boss to go to those players when then debuffs expires. This allows the rest of the raid to actually adjust around what's going on and deal with very different mechanics at the same time. And what you need to do is make sure that when those timers expire, that those people go to their correct spots, they bait out the lasers, so you can imagine Xalatath with some sort of void lasers just shooting out in that area. You're dealing with another mechanic and then people have to go out. And this has taken some really creative lengths in terms of staying out for an elaborate amount of time compared to when you think you're supposed to move back. And it's all about just paying attention to a timer, essentially. Nothing complex, nothing good, nothing that's crazy. But the cool thing about it is it can land on anybody, especially in like a 20-man or 30-man, 10-man raid, is you can land on different people with different timers, and then you have to sort of think, okay, I have the 30-second one, so I need to be in, say, position 6, or I need to be at yellow at that time. Now, obviously, as it stands right now, a weak aura would just tell you. It would just automatically assign it, so Blizzard doesn't bother with it because it's like, what's the point? You guys are just going to do that and solve it there. The other thing I think we could very much see, and we are seeing evidence of this already, especially in Ecodome, the new dungeon that's coming in 11.2, is actual variable debuffs on different party members with positioning requirements. Typically in World of Warcraft, we have colors. Lock and Stock would be an example of that, right? The most recent one. But we've had this in the past. You get Thaddeus. It goes all the way back, where you get a debuff or whatever, or you get some sort of color assignment, something that means you need to be with other people, and then you need to go to a set spot. So think about Razageth as well. Same sort of thing. However, what we then have mixed in is randomness in terms of where you can go, typically with conal attacks. As it works right now in World of Warcraft, conal attacks are kind of a wasted mechanic for the most part. They either randomly select somebody and they have a big animation so it goes wherever, or they're on tanks for tanks to position. What we might start to see actually is the boss choosing places that isn't based on players. And then what you'll have happen is people get their sort of Razageth style debuff or whatever, or their lock and stock debuff, which means they need to coordinate to be in certain areas. So you can imagine cones coming out of the boss that leave 2 empty pizza slices, and you need to know where to go. And that introduces some cool things that other raiders and other games are absolutely used to. This is not complex, even though for those of you who've maybe grown up with weak auras already existing, will feel this is complicated. It's not. Trust me, you get used to it very quickly. Things like relative north, relative south. very common terminology in other video games where you're raiding, where you're like, okay, wherever she's facing, that's new north, and you will adjust east with red, right? And now you're going to start learning terminology like cardinals, intercardinals. Cardinals are north, south, east, west. Intercardinals, northeast, southwest, etc. Right? It's very simple stuff once you get used to the terminology, but it allows for that creativity and also allows them to take a little bit longer in time. So I would like to see mechanics like that come into the game, which previously would have just been assigned by WeCores.
The way I see it, one of 3 likely scenarios is going to play out here. Let's start with the positive. Number 1. This opens the door to all those ideas they've had left on the shelf that make no sense in a week or a world. Bring them back in. What they can also do is start slowing things down, which they've said they're going to do. Not too much though, just a little bit, enough for people to check the scenario, make a decision of where they want to go, and now they can even implement mechanics that are completely nullified by WeCores. Things like proximity assignments of where you need to stand, randomized group allocations where you do need to check where you're going. All these wonderful opportunities now await us and are just a net positive to raiding. Scenario 2 is that they kind of goof it up for a little while they find their feet, albeit probably temporarily, we hope. If it goes way too hard, that would involve removing a lot of add-on functionality while still maintaining the difficulty, pace, and intensity that exists today. That's not going to work, and it could lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, and a lot of people just saying, like, I just wish we had add-ons. Try and think back to when they removed flying in WoD, and we didn't get any positives out of it. The community outcry was terrible. They could also go way too easy. If they lean too heavily into puzzle solving and dances, by modern raiding standards, that's not super difficult, although they can obviously turn it up, but it might come across as being a little bit too easy for players and become a little mundane and boring. I'm not super worried about this one though. They have proven time and time again that they can make very, very difficult bosses that really don't require a lot of add-on interaction. So as long as they keep doing what they've been doing for the last couple of years, I think this one's probably not going to happen. Scenario 3. This is all kind of bullshit. Hear me out on this one. It's an idyllic world they're aiming for, and honestly, I am all for it. If we start to see things where we get to chit-chat a bit more, get to think about things, and I get to make a decision that's the correct decision and I'm proud of, big thumbs up. However, players are players. What have we proven throughout this video? Every time a roadblock is put in front of a player, they find a way to not go through it or to stop, but to go around it. I can absolutely foresee in the future companion raid add-on websites, third-party software that is controlled by a raid leader or whatever that actually like broadcasts things to you. We also had a near miss with that very recently with overlays. It was a thing that happened about 6-7 months ago. Here's the thing with this. If we look towards FF has been proudly and staunchly stood at the top of its game saying we are an add-on free game. Add-ons are rife in that game, it's widespread, and they have a don't ask, don't tell policy of what's going on over there. To pretend that it is this clean utopia is not true because players are players. Ultimately, this might curb a lot of crazy things, but the reality is they're probably going to find a way around it. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit excited to see how degenerate players get if they think they found a way around it. But I'd love to see what you think is going to happen with this, because it's honestly really wild. How far will they go? How far will they have to pull it back? And I'd love to see your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon with the race. Bye.